That's a very, very interesting question to ask in these times because it can get really confusing trying to figure out how the other side feels about us. It's like they pick who to criminalize by identity and who to pardon by power, I guess. And tonight I want to talk to you about this, and you might get tired of it, but it happens so often I can't help it. This hypocrisy that is so loud, you can hear it echo off the walls of every institution that claims to care about law and order. The same people, and Rams and I, we talk about a lot of this stuff when we're not in studio. The same people who accused New York's newly elected mayor of being a jihadist for daring to be Muslim are now silent, completely silent about presidential meetings with and pardons for men tied to terrorist financing and billions of dollars of corruption. The lesson? In America, your faith makes you a suspect, but your fortune can buy you forgiveness. During his campaign, Mayor Zoran Mamdani was smeared as an extremist with no evidence, Rams. It's not because of anything he ever did, simply because of his ancestry and his religion. Cable pundits labeled him dangerous. Right-wing commentators painted him as the enemy within. They didn't attack his policies, Ramses, nor did they attack anything he'd ever done. They attacked the way he prayed. Meanwhile, in Washington, the same movement that called him a jihadist and celebrated, that called him a jihadist, just celebrated a presidential pardon for Changpeng Zhao, a crypto billionaire whose company admitted to enabling money laundering for Al Qaeda, ISIS, and Hamas. Process that for a second. Let it sink in. A Muslim public servant vilified for simply existing as a Muslim, while a billionaire who helped move money for actual terrorists not only walked free, but was pardoned by the President of the United States. Now, they would like you to believe that what they're doing to immigrants on our streets is about national security. But if it were really about that, if this were really about protecting Americans from terrorism, then people shouting jihadist would be just as loud about pardons for people who funded terror networks. But they're not, because it was never about safety. It was always about scapegoating. Their outrage, selective. Their justice, selective. Their forgiveness, also selective. And that selective morality is the oldest weapon in American politics. What does that say about power? You see, in this country, power doesn't erase sin. They just rebrand it. If you're wealthy, your crimes become mistakes that you made in the midst of a bad life. If you're powerful, your corruption becomes some misunderstanding. If you're connected, your guilt becomes a headline cycle. But if you're black, brown, Muslim, immigrant, and or your existence is treated as evidence. Your difference is dangerous, and you're punished not for having done anything, but for who you are. They criminalize identity while pardoning wealth, power, and greed. This is the machinery of hypocrisy. Fearmonger about immigrants, Muslims, and diversity. Use that fear to consolidate political power. Protect wealthy donors, even when their actions actually threaten national security. And then when someone calls you out for it, get on your platform and cry fake news and just move on like nothing happened. It's performative morality. This morality just so happens to worship money. But they weaponize morality itself against anyone without it. Without money, that is. The saddest part, A lot of poor brown people, black people, they buy the lie. They think they're defending their faith or their freedom or their family when what they're really defending is fraud dressed as patriotism. And that power comes back at us. We have to figure out a way to take it back, because the antidote to selective justice is collective accountability. In a democracy, that means voting, not voting as a ritual or a side quest, but as an act of self-defense. They count on fatigue, cynicism. They count on us feeling like it doesn't matter, but trust me, it does, because power only gets away when we stop showing up. Here's the clapback. They don't get to criminalize a Muslim mayor while pardoning men who financed Al-Qaeda. They don't get to weaponize faith against the powerless while blessing corruption in the powerful. They don't get to decide who's holy and who's disposable. Not while we still vote and still speak. Not while we still believe that justice, however slow, belongs to all of us, or it belongs to none of us. You cannot build a moral nation on selective outrage, and you can't preach Jesus while practicing Caesar. So no, they don't get impunity. Not if we keep paying attention and keep voting. Not if we keep demanding that faith, freedom, and fairness actually mean something.
I want to add something here too. For everybody that has an issue with Zohran Mamdani, I want to put it to you that Dr. Oz is Muslim. Dr. Oz. Yep, him. He is Muslim. And I want you to feel how that feels. Right? Is there a problem now with Dr. Oz, or is there no longer a problem with Zohran Mamdani? Another thing I want to say is that, to your point, it's so interesting how in this country, the bad guy is always shifting around, in terms of who the enemy is, right? I happen to know this because I live in a place where they take Native American history very seriously. That once upon a time, Native Americans were considered enemies, right? They had a lot of language, racist language used to describe them. Black people, of course, we've always been either lazy or, through the crack epidemic, we were either crackheads or drug dealers. Then it went to Muslim people after 9/11, so that extended to all Middle Eastern people. And then nowadays it's, Mexican people and immigrants. And so it's, I could see that. Is the crime being brown, poor, or both? I could absolutely see it.